Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? We spend so much time and energy obsessing over our physical fitness. We hit the gym, we obsessively track our daily steps, we go for those early morning runs. But what about our minds? Well, today, we are officially stepping into the mental gym. We're going to explore the really fascinating science and psychology of mastering our own minds, building profound resilience, and supercharging our willpower. Think of this as your ultimate, completely comprehensive workout plan, but for your brain.
But hey, before we start lifting those mental weights, let me throw a big question your way. Is mental health the exact same thing as mental strength? Take a second to really think about that. You might assume they're entirely interchangeable terms. Honestly, most people do. We throw them around in the exact same conversations. But as we're about to see, equating the two is actually a massive misconception, and it's one that might literally be holding you back.
What's really wild here is the clear, distinct line between the two. Mental health is all about your overall state of well-being, or basically the absence of an illness like anxiety or depression. But mental strength, that is a completely different beast. It's your active ability to deal with negativity in a healthy way, to deeply, truly understand your own emotions, and to perform at your absolute best when the pressure is on. Here's the core metaphor I really want you to lock in today. It's just like physical health. Merely lacking a cold doesn't automatically mean you can go out and bench press 200 pounds, right? Well, having good mental health doesn't automatically mean your mental muscles are strong. Willpower and resilience are literally like physical muscles. Even if you're perfectly healthy, they require targeted, incremental daily exercise to actually grow.
So here is our game plan for today's explainer. 1. Defining mental strength. 2. The art of radical acceptance. 3. Rewiring your inner voice. 4. Hacking the habit loop. And 5. Habits of the mentally strong.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Defining Mental Strength. Let's look at the three parts.
The absolute crucial point to understand is that mental strength isn't just one single trait. It's a combination of three interlocking pieces. First up, thinking. Now, this isn't just slapping on a fake smile and blind positivity. It's the ability to maintain a realistic inner monologue. When everything hits the fan, it's about replacing those irrational, spiraling thoughts with genuine self-compassion. Talking to yourself the way you'd talk to a really good friend. Second is feeling. Mental strength is absolutely not about burying your pain or acting like some unfeeling robot. It's about acknowledging your emotions without suppressing them. And third, doing. This means getting out there and taking constructive actions, doing little behavioral experiments to push your limits, and crucially, prioritizing self-care even when you're completely exhausted. Thinking, feeling, and doing. Those are the three primary muscle groups we've got to train.
Moving right along to Section 2, the art of radical acceptance and learning to honor difficulties. Okay, so a foundational exercise for our mental gym is this concept called radical acceptance. It's a conscious, deliberate effort to acknowledge and honor difficult situations and emotions exactly as they are. Now, there's a huge myth out there that acceptance means you approve of a terrible situation or that you're just throwing in the towel. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It means you are actively choosing not to waste your very limited, precious energy fighting reality. When you're stuck in terrible traffic or you completely spill coffee all over your shirt, wishing the situation were different just creates a secondary, totally unnecessary layer of suffering. Radically accepting reality, exactly as imperfect as it is in that moment, is the first active step to actually moving forward.
But let's be real, what usually derails our radical acceptance? Well, most of the time, it's our desperate need to have our reality validated by other people. I want you to ask yourself if you exhibit any of these signs. Do you find yourself excessively apologizing? Like maybe even when someone else bumps into you in the hallway? Do you overcommit at work because you're terrified of rejection and literally just cannot say no? Does a slightly neutral tone in a text message from a friend cause you deep, lingering discomfort? If you're nodding along, these are signs that you've tied your emotional survival to other people's approval. Radical self-acceptance means validating your own emotions. It's looking in the mirror and saying, "My feelings make perfect sense," instead of exhausting yourself chasing after an external nod of approval.
Next up, Section 3, Rewiring your inner voice and building cognitive immunity.
Psychologist Carol Dweck has some truly mind-blowing research that highlights a massive contrast in how we handle failure. She identifies what she calls the tyranny of now. That's a fixed mindset. It's where if you encounter a problem that's just too hard, you feel like your core intelligence is being tested and completely devastated. You just run from the difficulty. But contrast that with what she calls the power of yet. Dweck actually studied a high school in Chicago that stopped giving failing grades. Instead, if you failed, you got a grade of not yet. I mean, how cool is that? It instantly puts you on a learning curve. Brain scans show that when a person with a growth mindset makes an error, their brain is literally on fire with activity. They are actively processing and deeply learning from the mistake. The difficulty doesn't mean I'm dumb, it just means not yet.
So how do we actually rewire our brains to achieve that elusive growth mindset? We can look to a highly effective clinical intervention called cognitive behavior modification, or CBM. First, you have to actively track your destructive self-talk. You've got to catch yourself red-handed in the act of negative thinking. From there, you work to understand exactly how that specific thought triggers your anxiety or kicks off a bad habit. And finally, you substitute that thought with positive, adaptive self-instructions. Over time and with repetition, you literally train your brain to replace those irrational, knee-jerk thoughts with constructive ones, which changes the entire outcome of your behavior.
Another brilliant CBM technique is stress inoculation training. Think of this exactly like a medical vaccination, but for your psychology. You are quite literally injecting yourself with small, highly manageable doses of stress preparation to build a lasting psychological immunity. It happens in 3 fluid phases. First, the conceptual phase, where you educate yourself about what exactly triggers your stress. Then you move into skill acquisition, gathering real tools like emotional self-regulation and problem-solving techniques. Finally, the application phase, where you intentionally practice these coping skills in simulated or even real-life situations. You are proactively putting on your mental armor way before the battle even begins. All right, Section 4, hacking the habit loop and taking control of those automated routines.
Okay, let's dive into Charles Duhigg's incredibly famous framework from his work on habits. The honest truth is, most of what we do every single day is at least partially automated, and this loop is exactly how it happens. It all kicks off with a cue. This could be a specific location, a certain time of day, or even just a fleeting emotion. That cue triggers a craving, which is basically your brain aggressively anticipating a reward. This craving actually hijacks your brain early in the process and practically forces you into the routine, which is that automated action you take whether it's good or bad. And finally, you get the reward, that sweet dopamine payoff that completely solidifies the loop. If you really want to build mental strength, you have to map out exactly what your personal cues and cravings are.
And this leads us straight to what Duhigg calls the golden rule of habit change. He points out a hard truth. You actually cannot extinguish an old bad habit entirely. Habits are never truly erased from the brain. Instead, you have to manipulate the loop. You keep the old cue, and you absolutely still deliver the old reward, but you actively insert a brand new routine in the middle. For example, if your cue is feeling stressed mid-afternoon and your routine is eating a donut just to get the reward of a quick endorphin spike, keep the cue, but swap the donut for a brisk 5-minute walk to get that exact same endorphin reward. You are actively hacking your own brain's operating system.
And finally, Section 5, habits of the mentally strong and the absolute necessity of daily practice. Psychotherapist Amy Morin developed this globally recognized, super insightful list of things mentally strong people actively avoid doing. First off, they don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. They just acknowledge that life isn't always fair, and they take responsibility. They don't give away their power by letting other people dictate their emotional state. And definitely notice this next one. They don't worry about pleasing everyone. This directly combats that dangerous trap of external validation we were just talking about earlier. They also don't waste energy dwelling on the past or complaining over things they literally can't control, like a delayed flight or bad weather. And crucially, they never expect immediate results. They know for a fact that real, profound, lasting change takes time and steady daily application.
So if there's one crucial overarching point that bridges every single thing we've looked at today, it's simply this. Willpower is a muscle. Just like your biceps or your quads, it gets tired the harder it works. There are absolutely going to be days when your mental strength is just completely depleted. But with practice, with radical acceptance, with rewiring your inner voice to harness the power of yet, and by actively hacking your habit loops, that muscle becomes formidably strong. And you know the absolute best part? Research shows that as you strengthen your willpower in one specific part of your life, that newly found strength naturally spills over into literally everything else you do.
So, to wrap up our explainer today, I want to turn the spotlight over to you. I'm going to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. What old cue are you going to hijack with a new routine today? You've got the complete mental gym toolkit sitting right in front of you now. It is time to start lifting. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I seriously cannot wait to see the mental muscles you build.